This would have made a lot more sense if it was on a Fire Emblem video. And it would have been a lot more on brand if this was an Ephraim jacket, but I sadly don't have one of those. Alright, happy Halloween, everybody. I hope that you're having a good day. Halloween is my personal favorite holiday, so naturally I had to make a special video just for today. And I thought, what better thing to focus on than one of the biggest horror game franchises in the last decade. And it's one that I have a very close attachment to because I've been following it for so long. So let's just get into it, why don't we? I'm bad at intros. I've been keeping up with FNaF ever since Markiplier first made a video about it. You've all seen it, it has like 500 billion views. So I've been keeping up with the series for a long time. The games were neat, but of course, the most interesting thing about the series has been the theories and the mystery. And I've been elbow deep in FNaF theories for a long time. I've seen all of them. I've seen every video MatPat has made. I've seen a lot of different theories from a lot of different people. Just so many things from all corners of the internet. Just a bunch of different stuff from a wide variety of people. While theories are not the topic of discussion for today, that's all to say that I have a pretty decent understanding of the series as everyone mostly understands it. I've never read the books because who would? So I can't claim to have a deep knowledge about everything in the series, especially recently. But I know the bare essentials plus a bunch of extra. And since it's Halloween, the scariest day of the year aside from Tax Day, and since the FNaF movie had just come out, it made me want to make a video I've been meaning to, asking this question. Should FNaF have ended with Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night? I'm sure the knee-jerk reaction for that is, yeah, probably. But why do we feel like that? I'm the same. I think it should have ended there, but why? I'd like to explore the topic a little deeper. I'm sure not every single person agrees, but at least to my understanding, most people were very satisfied by the ending of FNaF 6. The mysteries are never fully solved with this series, but it really felt like a perfectly imperfect ending, as ideal as it could have been with this series, with every key player burning together and finally moving on. I mean, you could argue that Michael isn't there, but everyone unanimously agrees that Michael was the player character, otherwise this line wouldn't make very much sense.
Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be.
It even had a big final speech from Henry, which is still so well done, and it just seemed like a perfect final send-off to the series.
But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
While Pizzeria Simulator was the end of the story, the would-be final game was Ultimate Custom Night, which added some clarification and invariably some confusion as well. Thinking about it this way, had the series ended there, the final story bit would have been everyone burning together, and the final shot of the series would have been this. Golden Freddy twitching, refusing to move on and instead choosing to torment Afton for all eternity. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And that would close the book on the FNaF series. A muddy pond, sure, but a coherent enough story with characters and events that you can follow. Mostly. Although making a timeline out of it would not be very easy. Thus ends a series that's incredible and special to many people. This, to me, would have been a fitting conclusion, and though not every mystery was solved, maybe some things are best left forgotten forever. But this isn't where it ended. FNaF VR and AR began to set up new potential conflicts and antagonists after Afton's far past timely demise. And of course, it all led to security breach. So, let's talk about what the games since then have solved that we didn't already know, and talk about what we would have missed out on had the series ended at Ultimate Custom Night. What have the games since given us the evidence to solve for that we didn't already have? Well, by my calculations, the answer is absolutely nothing. You know, unless I missed something or forgot, which, in my defense, is very easy to do with this series. Now, that's not necessarily a detriment, because after Ultimate Custom Night, it seemed clear they wanted to go in a new-ish direction, closing the book on one era and opening another. So let's focus instead on what they've added, what we would have missed out on. The most obvious thing to talk about is Vanny, our new antagonist. I guess. Vanny is a mess. What did this character even do or accomplish? What was the point of even using this character if they had no idea what to do with her? And so little faith in her that the big reveal was that Afton is still there, kinda. Vanny had loosely defined motivations, to put it in the kindest of terms. She wasn't half-baked. She wasn't even quarter-baked. She was like 19% baked. And according to Ruin, it seems like the canon ending to Security Breach is the one where you save Vanessa. So they used her for like 2 scenes in one game. That's what all the big setup was for. That's all our new antagonist amounted to. Was the idea of killer AI just so appealing that you had to immediately throw Vanny to the side after building her up so much in VR and AR? And what does that mean for Afton and the Blob? Are they still just down there, cracking open a cold one and watching the game? Or is that just not canon now? Huh. Is Afton and the Blob being down there just not canon anymore? Maybe the entire FNaF 6 location isn't down there either. But then, if we assume all the non-canon endings are Gregory's imagination, why would he imagine the FNaF 6 location down there? Has he been there? Does he know about it? And why would he also imagine Afton and the Blob? I don't know. Ask MatPat. I used to enjoy theorizing about this series, but I really can't hope to offer a satisfying explanation about this because I don't consume every piece of FNaF media anymore. By which obviously I'm referring to the books. You can't really theorize about this series anymore without knowing everything about those. I wouldn't be opposed to getting back into it as hardcore as I used to be if they would just give me something that I found interesting again, but Killer AI? Is that really where they're going with it? This is just a personal tangent, but Killer AI? Do people really think that's cool, or do they just have honeymoon syndrome because they're not using Afton anymore? Or maybe I just can't see why it's cool. I don't know. Wasn't part of the fun of the FNaF mysteries trying to figure out why the killer did what he did and how that tied into the overall lore? Killer AI are just evil because they're trained to be, right? Is that fun? I don't know. I guess I just don't see the fun in that. Is it just trying to figure out which specific killer AI killed this person? Are they all going to fuse together at some point and turn into a Mecha Godzilla-sized Springtrap and fight the animatronic Power Rangers? Is that what the Blob was building up to all along? Now, I know it just sounds like I'm being a bit facetious, but I just think killer AI is a really lame concept, especially for a series like FNaF. I mean, everyone maybe being robots is also lame, but if the killers are also robots who are evil because they're trained to be, it's kind of just like, what's the point? Like, what's anyone's motivation anymore? Is there any motivation? Do the writers have any motivation anymore, aside from money? And as much as I agree that continuing to use Afton is both thematically terrible and creatively bankrupt, is using a killer AI trained off his behavior really any better? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too negative, and they'll surprise me with how interesting they make it. I have my doubts, but I sincerely hope that they do. But let's move on from that rant. There are so many secrets in Security Breach that seem like they should lead somewhere, but just really don't. The sticky note room. Maybe it means this, but this conflicts with that. The tape recordings. That must mean this, but this can't be possible if that's the case. Why in the universe is the sister location here, with the exotic butters from the non-canon ending? On and on and on. It's just like, what are you talking about anymore? Like, are you talking about anything? Are you talking about anything? Or are you just throwing stuff at the wall, desperately hoping that something sticks? I don't know. But it seems clear to me that most, if not all, the mysteries are unsolvable at present. They've created mysteries that they may solve later. They might continue this plotline or add context to this later. To me, it seems like they set up a bunch of different maybes so that they can pick and choose going forward. And that is an incredibly bad way to write a mystery. If you don't know yet what you want to do for a series like FNaF, where people constantly argue and theorize about it, and that's the point, don't do it. It doesn't feel like these mysteries or these vague ideas exist to intrigue or interest people. It just seems like they're checking a box. FNaF just has to have these vague ideas for people to argue about, so throw them in, but don't bother filling them in. We'll do that later if we feel like it. And if it's true that Afton and the Blob aren't even down there canonically anymore, they aren't even held accountable by their own game. They can just put whatever they want, wherever they want, and retcon it later if it doesn't suit them. Compared to the pre-VR games, there were mysteries, frustrating ones, but it did feel like the pieces were in place and that Scott had an overall vision for the series. Sure, he left things vague, but you could still piece some things together using context from the entire series. Oftentimes, the biggest mysteries of each game could be solved to an extent using context both from that game and from the previous games. Even when things didn't have a concrete answer, the mysteries did give some frustration, but they mainly gave intrigue, at least in my opinion. Back when it seemed like Dream Theory was the intent of the games, MatPat is the last time I'm going to name drop him, I promise. MatPat impressively put the pieces together that the grandfather clock chimes being replaced by the digital alarm clock was indicative of the crying child's transition into the hospital. This therefore indicated that 1 through 4 was most likely meant to be a dream, with the crying child having been woken up by the grandfather clock in the games prior. It was this big smoking gun moment in one of his theories, and it did make a lot of sense, but it wasn't like the grandfather clock chimes were frustrating players before. It was just a subtle change into a digital clock that implied that maybe there was more to it, and using the others and Forrest's story as context, it seemed likely that it was all just a dream. And that's the key word here, subtle. It was something subtle that was brought into focus later, and that is a good way to handle a mystery. The mysteries in Security Breach, however, the Post-it Note Room, the voice recordings, the sister location room, they are the polar opposite of subtle. They might as well have a giant banner draped across them that just says, "Analyze me" in giant impact font. And then when you come up with nothing, it's just like, well, tough luck, pal. Wait for the next game. Haha, loser. Okay, I got a bit sidetracked there. Going back to Dream Theory, that has obviously been retconned. So, like, haha, what's the difference, right? The obvious difference is that Scott had a cohesive vision of this series through Dream Theory at least as early as FNaF 2, and he ended up changing it because everyone disliked the idea so much, myself included, because after theorizing about it so much, it did kind of feel a bit like a slap in the face to just be told, well, it was all a dream, so kind of wasted your time. And obviously that wasn't his intention, and that wasn't what he wanted to do, so he changed it. It's true that there were frustrating mysteries in the original game as well, but the frustrations that come from the more recent games are more because they also don't really seem to know what they want to do with the series. It honestly feels like they know less than we do. It kind of feels like they look at the theories and they're like, oh, that's a good idea, write that down. It's the difference of, gosh, this is so hard to figure out, and literally what in the world are they trying to say with this? Sure, every game continued to muddy the waters more and more, but I at least think you could follow a coherent enough storyline from FNaF 6 and back. There were many things left purposefully vague, of course, and some things we still don't have answers to, but I feel like Security Breach and the connected novels have just turned a muddy pond into a sea comprised only of mud. The problem is just that they don't seem to know what they want to do with the series, and understandably so, because the series has already ended. But apparently most of the original core series is now considered non-canon within the canon of the actual universe, which I'm sure longtime fans just love to see. If you want to make a new story, make a new story. But they didn't do that either, because there are still so many references and past important characters still may be involved. They just threw so many things at the wall haphazardly, hoping that something would stick. It feels messy in the best situations, and completely nonsensical in the worst. If you want to make a new story, make a new story. Maybe don't even call it Five Nights at Freddy's. So should FNaF have ended with 6? Yes. Why? Because it was about as perfect of an ending as the series could have gotten, and what they've created by continuing the series has mostly been incoherent nonsense so far. Ruin was a little better, and they seem to have a clear direction in mind going forward, but even putting my personal feelings about the lameness of that direction aside, I can't say I have much confidence that it'll end up being very cohesive or well put together after Security Breach. But I'd love to be proven wrong. It would be great if they could make things as intriguing as they used to be. Or even more intriguing. But I don't know if that's possible anymore with how the series has evolved. But hey, we'll see what happens, huh? And you know, for as much flack as I'm giving the new games, at least Ruin did do something very, very right. Bringing back the best boy, Candy Cadet.
I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy.
Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, and only if you did, feel free to leave a like. It makes me feel good about the effort I put in. And if you enjoy this style of content, feel free to subscribe. I have a lot more on the way. I'm down to do more FNaF content if people are interested. It might be fun to talk about some old theories I used to have that are mostly debunked by now. And hey, let me know what you think about the video down in the comments. Do you think I'm being too hard on Security Breach, or maybe you think I have rose-tinted goggles towards the original games? Would be an understandable viewpoint. I probably am underselling how frustrated people could become, even back in the day with theorizing. But much more important than any of that, genuinely I hope you have a fantastic day. Go try to do something productive with your life. I will try to do the same.